Good morning. It is Friday. It's April 24th, and we are going to finish this unit today. It's going to be quick. It's a slide and a half. And with it being Friday, that means the assignment that follows is not due till the following Thursday. Hopefully, you've been keeping up with all your assignments and everything's been turned in. But if you haven't been keeping up, go back and do them. Receive some points, and we'll get started here. We talked yesterday about monetary policy, which is the Fed's way to manipulate the flow of money, to get money out in circulation, either quickly or slow it down, to manipulate or encourage us to spend or not to spend. And monetary policy we talked about is different than fiscal policy in that monetary policy is indirect. It's not intended to reach every American citizen. Fiscal policy is more intentional. It's designed to reach everyone, but not monetary policy. So let me, I'm going to share my screen with you here. Give me 1 second. And here we go. So we were talking about monetary policy in 3 ways in which you can create monetary policy. You have the reserve requirement, the reserve ratio. You have the discount rate, and you have what's called open market operations. And it really depends upon what the Fed is trying to get accomplished, to which method they use, how quickly they want it done or how slowly they want things done. But regardless of the method they use, there's several signs to what we would consider effective monetary policy. And the first one's full employment. Full employment is not by any means 100% employment. Full employment, it keeps our unemployment rate around 3%, at best 4% and under. Okay, so let's just say it's under 4%. We'll consider society fully employed. So if monetary policy is effective, people, bottom line, they're going to have some jobs. But we need to remember, it goes way back to the economic goals. You may have a job. You might not be happy in it, but you may have a job. The second sign of effective monetary policies, stable prices, which when we're going to talk about inflation in a minute, but with stable prices, when money flows too quickly, prices are not stable. They shoot up dramatically. When money flows very slowly, prices will drop. We might like it, okay? We might like lower prices, but and having lower prices, that means other people are suffering, which means our unemployment is on the rise. That's what creates stable. That's what creates prices to lower. So what we want to do is prices remain relatively flat. And when we get into the different types of inflation, I'll explain that a little bit more in greater detail, what I mean by relatively flat. And the last sign of effective monetary policy is economic growth. Here's the difference between full employment and economic growth. Economic growth is the expansion of job opportunities. So you might see some businesses that are looking to hire right at the moment. They could be looking to hire because some individuals have left and they need to fill those spots, or they could be looking to hire because their business has picked up and they need to add new spots. If individuals have left and they're looking just to replace, that's not economic growth. That falls towards full employment. But if they're looking to expand their business, or when we bring in new businesses, that is economic growth. So now here's the counter to all of this. In order to have stable prices, we need to have minimal full employment and we need to have minimal economic growth. The reason I say that is because when people are working, the economy is expanding, money's flowing quicker, which means we're spending money, which brings a rise to prices. Okay, so what we need to understand is a juggling act. And because monetary policy is so slow in the making, that's one of the reasons why people on the Board of Governors are there for 14 years. So let me show you really quickly how one can create a tight monetary policy, tight money policy, a restrictive policy. And they could do one of 3 things. They could raise the discount rate. We know the discount rate is the interest rate charged to banks who borrow from the Fed. And if they raise that rate, then it's going to trickle down, to which means interest rates are going to go up. Not saying you can't borrow money, saying it's going to cost you more in the end when you go to pay it back. They could raise the reserve requirement. Remember, we operate under fractional banking. And the example I had used before was 20%. If I need to get money out of circulation, I could raise that reserve requirement, which from 20% to say 30%. That means we got to pull out 10% more out of the economy, so to speak, or make it less available. So they could do that. And that's probably the most direct method. Or they could sell government bonds, which is probably the absolute slowest method. Not a lot of people go out and buy bonds, but once you buy a bond, then you're giving the money to the government, and the government does with it what they want. They don't want to put it out in circulation. They just hang on to it. So raise the discount rate. We all understand the higher the interest rate, the more it costs us to pay off. Raise the reserve ratio, the reserve requirement related to fractional banking, probably the most direct way, or sell government bonds. And it's probably something that they do just as maybe they forecast maybe inflation down the road, and let's just slow it down a little bit. So that's very slow moving. So if they want to increase the flow of money, they can lower the discount rate. They can make things way more attractive. They could take the interest rates and drop them, which again is a trickle down effect. House mortgages are, I don't know, around 4%, give or take at the moment. And I remember my very first home I purchased was at 12%. And talking to my parents at that time, they said that's a great rate, because rates when I was in high school were in the high teens, maybe low 20s. At that point in time, they're like, it's 12%, take it. Well, now we're at 4%. But here's the bottom line. You can lower the interest rates, but I still need to borrow the money. You can lower the reserve requirement. You can make more money available at the banks. But again, you still need to go borrow the money. And then the third thing is the government can flip it, and they could go around and they could buy securities from other governments, from local governments, Wadsworth, or the county government or the state government. They could give them money. And that's probably the most direct. If I want you to spend money, I give you the money. Okay, so those are the three ways at which they could expand the flow of money. Still very slow, just like a restrictive policy is. It's still very slow, but those are the three ways. So one of the main goals of the Fed is to fight inflation. That is rising prices. Okay, we need to regulate inflation, or they need to regulate inflation. And here's a cause of inflation. It's called demand pull. That's situation where demand exceeds supply. Okay, there's that new item out there, and we're all remember signs of a shortage, how we would wait in line for a product and stuff like that. Well, businesses are going to take advantage of that. And sometimes prices go up simply because of us. When a new iPhone comes out, people are willing to pay $1,000 or plus for that new iPhone. Okay, and the prices are rising. If you just wait a year or 2 years, or get the model beneath that new one, you're going to get it for a lot less than what it originally went for. So demand pull is caused by the consumer, where we demand more and we pay more. The other one's called cost push. The increase in the cost of inputs, resources. So if I asked you in class who wants a pay raise, if everybody raised their hand, I would get it. You want a pay raise. But there's results, or there's consequences to pay raises. When the employer gives a pay raise, they're going to raise prices across the board. So when minimum wage went up, prices went up a little bit. Okay. So as the cost of resources increases, the prices go up. So the one main resource in the production or producing gasoline is oil. So as the cost of oil increases, price per barrel of oil, gas prices go up. At one point in time, when gas was around $4 a gallon, the price per barrel of oil was $120, $130 a barrel. Now it's a lot less than that, as you see prices are dropping. So When inputs cost more, they're going to raise prices unless the business is willing to reduce their overall revenue, which would reduce their overall profit, which I bet they're not willing to do. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you 3 types of inflation. The first one's called creeping inflation. It's inflation rate at somewhere between 1% and 3%. To be fair, we don't really notice that too much. If something goes up 1%, 2%, 3%, we don't really know. We can deal with it. Sometimes if you get what's called a cost of living increase, it might not be a pay raise. It's a pay raise according to what the current rate of inflation is. If inflation's at 3% and you get a 3% cost of living increase, or some people say, I got a pay raise 3%. Yeah, but you're still steady. You're still able to only buy the same amount of goods you used to buy. So creeping inflation is where we want to be. That's somewhat stable prices. Yes, prices go up gradually, but we can handle that. Sometimes what we can't handle is something called galloping inflation, where prices go up 100, 300%. I'm going to make an assumption that there's some businesses out there or some markets out there that have really raised their prices significantly due to this coronavirus. They're looking at it as an opportunity to make money. Sometimes galloping inflation occurs maybe in the winter up here for us, as the price of fruits and vegetables increases dramatically, as we have or we don't have the farmers markets anymore. People aren't able to grow them here. We have to bring everything up from down south. So prices go up dramatically. Maybe we buy less fresh fruits and less fresh vegetables than we would in the summer. So sometimes that happens. Okay. We don't like it. Sometimes it's really hard to manage and deal with. It might make us go look at another product, substitution effect, but that's what's called galloping inflation. Here's a type of inflation we've never had in our country. It's called hyperinflation. It's a rate of inflation of 500% or more. You're all familiar with what Germany did during the World War to pay back their debt, how they wanted to, or they just printed more money and they just put more money out in circulation to where the money became useless. Okay. And that's something called hyperinflation. Greece has done it. Zimbabwe has done it. Argentina's had issues with it, with hyperinflation. Now, when I showed you inflation calculator, and to be fair, guys, I forget what note I showed you. It was a $50 note. So what would cost me $50 in 1965, I think is the year I used when I was born. What cost me $50 in 1965 would cost me $400 some today. We're not going to call that hyperinflation. That's been gradual over the course of the 54 years. What hyperinflation is and galloping inflation is it's in a relatively quick time span. And that relatively quick time span could be a couple months, a year, 2 years tops, that prices go from here, boom, and they shoot way up to there. So this concludes the lesson for the day. I told you it was going to be short. So next week, let me click out of this here. Next week, Monday, Tuesday, stuff like that, I'm going to start getting you ready for a test over this unit. Give you some review questions, allow you to earn some grades. I'm going to attach a couple questions to this presentation. It's not going to be 5 questions. There's not going to be a secret question that you need to answer. You know what? Yeah, it will. I have a green pen here. So if I ask you what color my marker is, it's green. But it's only going to be a few questions. It was only a slide and a half. And then we will get rolling into, finally, you'll see a test next week, and we'll get rolling into our last unit as we're bringing the school year to a close. So hopefully come May 1st, the governor says, hey, you could gradually go back to school, and we could start getting back to normal life. But until then, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Please keep up with your assignments. If you have questions, please contact me. All right. Take care. Bye.